welcome back to the Movie Pit Podcast. And this is the return of the Retro Rewatch. I did some of these, kind of the Maybe series was pretty much the first of these Retro Rewatches. And that's, I guess, kind of what I'm going to be calling the series a little bit. All these movies will be random. They won't really be, related to anything unless, it's very specifically told at the beginning, like here when I'm talking, doing my little opening spiel. But with this rewatch series, the Retro Rewatch Series, I'll be looking back at older movies that I have seen, sometimes multiple times, multitude of times even, movies that I haven't watched in a while, and just wanted to, go back and revisit some of those, or randomly chosen, spin a wheel, put a movie in a hat, something like that. Maybe even now and then, I'll also do a movie that I've never watched, just, for the kick of it. So, like I mentioned, I started this with the Maybe series, although technically I think I started it with the Don't Look Under the Bed episode that I did, which was a DCOM rewatch during spooky season. 2 years ago now? I don't think it was last year. I can't remember now. Anyway, this episode, I'll be taking us back to 2008. We are talking, yes, about the 2008 action movie Death Race starring Jason Statham.
I created Death Race 6 years ago. I now have as many viewers as the Super Bowl. The drivers are convicts and the rules are simple. There are no rules. Win and get your freedom. Or die trying.
Who's the new guy?
Jensen Ames.
Used to race for NASCAR.
They say he killed his wife.
I want you to drive for me.
What makes you think I'm gonna risk my life doing this for you?
I'm offering you your freedom. All you have to do is walk off that track alive. And win, of course.
The movie was originally thought to be a remake of the 1975 film Death Race 2000, which starred David Carradine and a young Sylvester Stallone. However, director Paul W.S. Anderson of the Resident Evil movies and the Mortal Kombat movie at the time, later said he thought of it as a prequel to the original, even though when you watch the movie and how timeline kind of stacks up, it doesn't really add up. So it's pretty much kind of almost its own thing. Even though, yes, it is a remake, it is also still kind of its own thing. The original was a cross-country race where racers run down innocent people for points, but Anderson's Death Race is set in a prison island, keeping, of course, the racing element. The remake also took some time to make. The late Roger Corman was a producer on the original movie. He liked Anderson and brought him in on board to direct. And this thing took 13 years, yes, 13 years to make, with different versions of the script getting written and rewritten over that time. Not only that, at one point, I don't know how true this is, but I read it, and I'm going to say it because it's crazy if that is actually true. Tom Cruise was attached to produce this movie and even eyed to star in the movie, but Cruise didn't like how the scripts were turning out, and he left the movie. Which, let's face it, Tom Cruise is in this. Needless to say, very, very interesting. Because here's the difference. If Cruise did star in this movie, Statham, at the time, in 2008, is coming off War, the Jet Li movie he did, which was not very good, which came out in 2007. And then he had other movies coming out in 2008, The Bank Job and Transporter 3, which both those movies, by the way, came out months later after this movie, because I think this movie came out in August. The Bank Job, I think, came out in a limited release like in September, and then Transporter came out like in November. So all those movies, kind of within the span of a few months. Tom Cruise, at the time in 2007, when obviously they were filming this movie, had done Lions for Lambs, and then Tropic Thunder and Valkyrie both came out in 2008. Very different career paths, obviously, but that's just, how the cookie crumbled. All right, so let's get to the movie. And yes, this will be spoilers. It is a old movie. It's 2008. I can't even do the numbers now, but yeah, we're talking about spoilers. So I'm still figuring out how to do the rewatch. So I'm going to do this one how I thought about it, and then you guys let me know how you guys want this movie or how you want me to do the series. So here it is. Death Race. Set in 2020, but we have to get a little background telling us that in 2012, again, this movie came out in 2008, so it's jumping time here a little bit. In 2012, in 2008, the U.S. economy has collapsed and crime rates have gone up. Privatized prisons are making a lot of money, and the only one who is excelling at all that is Terminal Island Penitentiary, where warden Claire Hennessy, played by Joan Allen, broadcasts over the internet. Still kind of, it's the internet, but it's not like the internet that we know. She's broadcasting Death Race. a race around a prison with modified weaponized armored cars. The beginning of the movie also shows us the end of one of those races with a masked driver named Frankenstein, who was voiced by David Carradine himself, getting destroyed by his rival Machine Gun Joe, played by Tyrese. Then we jump to our main character, Jensen Ames, played by Jason Statham, a former racer who's working at a factory, and it turns out that they're closing the factory and not paying the workers, and they find out, starts a riot. Statham, because it's a Statham movie, has to have a fight scene, and a fight scene happens, and we assume he gets arrested, but we see Ames, or Jensen, is going home, and it's not explained how he gets out, or why he doesn't not in jail or anything like that. He just ends up going home with his wife and newborn daughter, and they have this nice moment between them, and then someone breaks into the house, knocks out Jensen, and kills his wife. Jensen wakes up to cops all over him, and he's blamed for the murder, and his daughter goes into the foster care system, and wouldn't you know it, after a little bit of a time jump, Jensen ends up, yes, at Terminal Island Penitentiary, where he's pretty much immediately sent to Hennessy's office by her right-hand man and her prison guard, Urich, played by Jason Clarke. Yes, that Jason Clarke, who I forgot was in this movie. And it turns out that Frankenstein died from the injuries at the beginning of the movie, and because Jensen has the qualifications, he is forced to become the new Frankenstein with the promise that if he wins the last 3 remaining races, he will be set free, and that Hennessy will work out this thing, this deal where he can get his daughter back. Not only can he be set free, he will get his daughter back. The real reason for the new Frankenstein is because we find out later that since Frankenstein disappeared, quote unquote, that the profits that they made off Death Race have actually been going down. And obviously, they all only care about that money. And because of the economy, and it doesn't matter that, it doesn't care that the economy collapsed, because they're still charging like $100 for one race. And they have like a bundle thing where it's like more, because, they're bad guys and they obviously want to make money. And it's, the early internet where, you want to see, crazy shit like this. So Jensen then meets Frankenstein's pit crew in Coach, played by Ian McShane, doing his thing, Gunner, played by Jacob Vargas, and Lists, played by Frederick Kohler. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Interesting tidbit, Kohler, Lists, is the only character, because there have been direct-to-DVD sequels, Kohler is the only one to appear in all those sequels. So, get that money, man. Get that money. So, Coach, Ian McShane, acts like a mentor to Jensen, telling him the rules and the ropes of the prison, telling him about his competition, and then kind of, he also reveals that, he doesn't actually need to be in prison anymore. Like he served his sentence. He just never left. And they never bothered to be like, hey man, just get out of here. It's like, no, I'm better off in prison than I am on the outside world. And, he gives a little bit of his backstory to Jensen and everything like that. A nice, Ian McShane performance there. Jensen then meets his navigator in Case, played by Natalie Martinez, who was the original Frankenstein's navigator. And also, you should know at this point that all the navigators in the movie for the drivers are women that come from the women's prison, except for Machine Gun Joe's navigator. Again, that's Tyrese's character. He has male navigators because it is implied that he is, a gay man, even though they never actually flat out say it. And he also gets new navigators after every race because he either gets them killed or he kills them themselves. So there you go. That's his character. During the first race, we learn that the first lap is a normal race. We get the rules for Death Race. The first lap is a normal race. And after the first lap, cars can activate their weapons they have in their cars by driving over markers on the ground. Like a video game, if you will. Now, most of the cars have guns on them, but Frankenstein has a cement block at the back of his car to give him protection, along with smoke and napalm, because who doesn't want some napalm thrown at them? So we get our first race, and during it, Jensen gets distracted by a driver, Pachenko, because he does a motion that the person that broke into his house did. And he becomes very, very narrow-minded and goes after Pachenko, and he loses that race. And Jensen then goes to confront him after the race is over, and Pachenko confesses the truth, and after beating him up, and he tells him that yes, Jensen was set up to come to Terminal Island Prison and become the new Frankenstein. So they have been working on this entire time. But that's not all the treachery that is going down, because Jensen asks his pit crew how Frankenstein lost since he was the best driver out there. And they say they still couldn't figure that out. They've been trying to figure that out ever since it happened, and they can't figure it out. They say it was a malfunction, but Jensen, being Jensen, he's like, he doesn't believe it. I don't think so. So he tells his crew to rig an injector seat to Case's side. And then when the race is happening, the second race, he threatens to launch her if he doesn't tell her the truth. And he's going to do it. Like, he has his hand on the button, and like Chase can't go anywhere because they're inside the car. So it turns out that Case rigged the car to keep Frankenstein from winning and leaving in exchange to getting her release papers from Hennessy. But of course, Hennessy was like, no, I want more blood. You're staying here because I want, Frankenstein. And the people want Frankenstein. The people want, Frankenstein and Machine Gun Joe to have their final race, to have that rivalry end. So, obviously Hennessy, not a good character. And during that second race, because, a lot of the cars have been, getting killed off and drivers have been getting killed off, she's like, nah, we want more bloodshed. I got to kill this guy because I think he knows everything that's going on. So she unleashes the Dreadnought, a multi-weapon, heavily armored oil rig that just kills everything and everybody except for, of course, Jensen and Machine Gun Joe. And this thing, the Dreadnought, looks like something out of Mad Max. All these cars look like something out of Mad Max. So this leads to the two of them working together to take down the Dreadnought, and they do it in a spectacular fashion. Of course, Hennessy is pissed, tells Urich to be like, okay, the final race is coming up. You know what you gotta do? You gotta plant a bomb. You gotta plant a bomb in Jensen's car. So right before it looks like he's gonna win, we're just gonna blow him up again like we did the first time. And we'll get a new Frankenstein and we'll do it all over again. And obviously Jensen knows all this at this point now. And he, him and Hennessy have this kind of like back and forth a little bit. And Hennessy's like, yeah, you'll totally be set free if you win. And Case is also playing up her part to Urich to be like, yeah, I'll sabotage the car. No problem. Don't worry about it. And then Hennessy, once the, race starts, Hennessy is like, hey, go ahead and, give Machine Gun Joe free access to his guns right out of the bat. So of course, Jensen, Case, Machine Gun Joe, they all end up working together. It's all ploy. They're looking like they're going to kill each other. And then they happen to see a weakened wall. So this is during the Dreadnought kind of incident. Coach points out like, hey, there's like a weakened wall over here. Like, we don't see it, but like it gets revealed like, hey, there's a weakened wall over here. Aim for it. Get out of here. Give Hennessy the greatest show she wants and you guys get out of here. So that's what happens. Jensen and Joe escape through that weakened wall, through a long-ass bridge that's from the prison to wherever they are. I don't think it's ever said where the movie takes place, but they just drive off and attempt to escape, and Hennessy is landing like everything after them, and they manage to escape because they're good drivers. But Hennessy still has the bomb, and she tries to blow up the car and doesn't go off, and we find out that the pit crew found the bomb and they removed it, and our heroes escape. And I think it's a little time after the show, because they were still streaming it, was a success, and you're just like, hey, we got another successful thing. And it's like, what are we gonna do? It's like, we'll just find new Frankenstein. Like, these people are dumb. They don't care. They'll believe that we got him and captured him, and he's back in prison. And they're like, yeah, of course. So Urich has this like little box. It's like a gift. He's like, I don't know. Someone sent it to you. And Hennessy opens it, and in it is it's the bomb that Urich had set up, and it's a picture of Jensen that's kind of ripped in half. They could kind of show this picture earlier in the movie, and it's like ripped in half, and it's only showing him, and like in the back of it says, to your favorite monster. You see the bomb, and then it blows up. And then, for some reason, Coach Ian McShane is outside of the prison. He's like on the racetrack, and he turns to us, the audience, the camera. He breaks the fourth wall and says, I love this game. No reason why he does that. Just absolutely no reason. I'll get to that in a minute. But we then cut to 6 months later. Jensen and Joe are working as mechanics together, and Case comes up, and I think she has like her kid, because she also has a kid, so she has her kid, and our heroes hug, and that's it. That's Death Race. I just summarized the whole movie for you guys. So I want to start trying to do this pros and cons. Cons, I really don't have any cons for this movie. It sounds very simple. I just ran down the whole movie. It's very simple. But is it perfect? No, it's not. But I also really can't pinpoint anything that I have a dislike or hatred for, or something that ruined. I mean, other than McShane's line of him turning to the audience saying, I love this game, because it's too cheesy. It's too cheesy for this, even for this movie. It's like, why is he turning to the camera? Like, it's not streaming. Like, there's no elaborate like camera angle where it's like, oh, hey, this is the stream, and this is like, the regular, camera that we're seeing in the movie. Like, no, there's nothing. He just turns to us, the camera, and be like, I love this game. Like, it's weird. It's just weird. I guess also, it's again, I think it's more of a time thing. The movie of its time, it has this very saturated look. really gray. There's barely any color. That's just what it was popular back in the day. So I don't really have a con. Pros, this movie moves pretty quick. It never really gets boggled down too much, which is nice because this movie could have been boggled down, but it never really slows down. It also knows what it is. It's not trying to be like this really like hyper social political movie, which it could have been. It's just this dumb, fun action car movie. And speaking of which, the action in this movie, it's not bad. The races look pretty cool. All the car stuff looks great. You know that this stuff is done practical. A lot of it is done practically. There's behind the scenes footage of this movie being done practically with the cars. If they made this movie today, unless they had the Mad Max crew working, this movie, a lot of it probably would have been done digitally. And it's not. This movie has a lot of practical stuff in it, especially the car stuff. And I think that will make you appreciate a lot of this movie and give you, even if you're not a fan of the characters or the plot or anything like that, I think the car stuff is really the thing that will make you like this movie. Because honestly, kudos and major props to them for actually doing it this way. They could have cheapened it out and done other way, but no, they really did a lot of the stuff here, and that's really, really cool. I don't know where to put this. I think anybody who watches this movie, probably knows about the car stuff, but they also know about Joan Allen's ridiculous line at the end, or near the end. And even little old me, like back in the day, I was like, oh my God, that is so cringy. Like, why would she say that? If I remember, I will edit it in here. It is such a cringy line. Even back then. And I think it's even cringier now. But she sells it and does it with just like every meaning behind her body. And it's just like, okay. Like, I can't put it in a con. I can't.
Okay, cocksucker. Fuck with me, and we'll see who shits on the sidewalk.
Overall, my final thoughts on Death Race. I only really watched this movie when it came out in theaters, and maybe I think I saw part of it like on TV when it came on like on Stars or Cinemax or something afterwards. So I really, this is the first time I rewatched it in its entirety, and since it probably came out. And my overall thoughts on the movie is that it's not that bad. There's some, it's not some forgotten gem or underrated movie. But if you're looking for like a decent, okay Friday night action movie where you can just have like some pizza, maybe a couple beers or something, Death Race is that movie. It's not great. It's not mind-blowing. The action scenes are pretty good here. And again, I say that and I give props to that because it was done practically. Yeah, there's some CGI stuff here and there, but a lot of the car stuff was done practically, and you can tell they put a lot of care into that. And that is what makes this movie really good. I have not seen the direct to DVD sequels, so I don't really know, how those stack up to this, but I doubt they probably don't stack up very well. I would recommend Death Race. Just know that it's a dumb fun action movie. Like, it's a dumb fun action movie from 2008. Just put it that way. That is a wrap on the first Retro Rewatch review episode. I'm still figuring out what I'm going to call this, really. But I think Retro Rewatch is good. I don't know what I'm doing next. I have an idea what I'm doing next, but I actually don't know what I'm doing next because I'm deciding between two movies, but I'll figure that out. Let me know what you thought. If you've seen Death Proof, if this made you want to go watch Death Race, sorry. Death Proof is another movie. Maybe I'll talk about Death Proof at one point. Who knows? Let me know what you thought. If you want to be a guest on this pod, on this kind of episodes, on these retro rewatches, let me know. I'm totally down to do that as well. Check out all the links down below in the description/show notes area. Let me know. And until next time, good people, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!